Hello, welcome to this episode of the Martial Truth Podcast. Practice makes perfect, or does it? I want to thank everybody again. Without you guys, this wouldn't be possible. I appreciate all the subscribers. We've passed the 12,500 subscriber mark. We've passed the 100 member mark, which is great. And as always, if you like what you see, please click that like button, share it, tell your friends. Think about becoming a member, and there's merchandise down at the bottom. Maybe think about supporting the channel in that way also. So let's get right into it. Practice makes perfect, or does it? I've heard this saying for my whole life: practice makes perfect, practice makes perfect. And again, on a certain level, it's true, but not really. All right. In the beginning, when your training initially starts, you're trying to just remember moves. And this can be in anything. I mean, I've watched my wife begin to learn piano since we moved out here to Arizona. And watching her initially struggling with certain things and now able to do those things, all right, shows that, practice will improve you, but it's a certain type of practice that will improve you. All right. So one of the things I say often in the dojo is practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. So what do I mean by that? Well, I'll use myself as an example. I am my own harshest critic. So nobody can be harder on me than me. So when I go and train with a teacher who's maybe a little more strict, who's a little more vocal, all right, doesn't bother me at all. All right. As long as he's not trying to abuse me or abuse other people. I mean, if he's just, one of these guys that likes to bark a little bit and yell a little bit, I have no problem with that. So it doesn't bother me because, again, he can't be harder on me than I am on me. All right. It's important that when we train, if I train on a Monday, I'm trying to get better than I was on Sunday. And when I finish Monday training and I'm thinking about Tuesday, the goal is for Tuesday to get me better and improve me from Monday. And this is how I always practice. So I'm never just going through the motions. I'm never just practicing to remember things. I'm practicing to improve all the time. And again, this is difficult, all right? And, now in my 46 years of doing martial arts, the progress comes slower. It's not as fast. There's not leaps and bounds, okay? It's a slow progression, but I do feel myself still getting better, all right? Which people say, well, how could you be getting better, Calandra, after all these years? There's got to be a point where you're not going to get better. If you start thinking like that, probably time to stop. Just stop, especially if you're an instructor. So, one of the things people say to me is when I train them, and people that are with me 30 years, right? I'll go in and I'll teach a seminar, I'll teach a class, and one of the guys with me over 30 years will come up to me afterwards and say, "Hey, Sensei, I never saw those two techniques before." And I look at them and go, "Really?" And they'll go, "No." And I'll say, "Huh." And this happens more often than you think. Or, I've never heard you put it that way before. The other day I was talking to a student on the phone and I mentioned something, and that student said to me, "I've never thought about it in that way. The way you just said that, I never thought about it like that." All right. So one of the things is if you get too content with how good you are or where you're at, then your growth stops and your ability stops. Your improvement stops. We can't have this. People often ask me well, why are you doing this stuff for so long? Like, you don't have it by now? Yeah, you know what? No, I don't have it by now. Yeah, other people will tell me, boy, Sensei, you're fantastic. Oh my God, Sensei, you're wonderful. I mean, I travel all over the world teaching, all right? And, I get people, even I traveled to China about 10 years ago, and I was part of a master's demonstration. And I was one of the few Westerners. There's only two of us that demonstrated with all the Chinese masters from various different Chinese arts. And, it was nice to be recognized by those other masters and treated as an equal. And there were people, in the audience that when I finished my demo came up to me, were patting me on the back, telling me it was great, So the problem is for me, I'm glad they were happy. I'm glad they liked the demo. I'm glad they think so highly about me. I mean, it makes me feel very good. But for myself, I never think like that. And this can be a very dangerous way to start thinking. If you begin to think, wow, man, I'm pretty good now at that. Wow, I've got it. Like, I've really got that. If you think that, you got a problem. Because you're automatically putting a block in your ability to improve. So me, no matter how many times people tell me how wonderful I am, okay, I don't think I'm so wonderful. I think I have a lot of work to do. I think I have to work on things, okay? Everything from the first thing I ever learned to the most recent thing I've learned, and everything in between. And every day I train, I try to improve and get better. So, especially when you're someone like me who does several martial arts and teaches several martial arts, right? So, some people think of me as a Kobudo person. Some people think of me as a karate person, as a Taiji person, as a jiu-jitsu person, right? So it's interesting, right? But myself, when I'm practicing each individual art, I'm working to improve those arts. All right? So the practice is important. How you practice is important. The mindset you have when you practice is important. So, some people say, well, you have to practice something 10,000 times to master it. And yeah, of course you have to practice something thousands upon thousands of times to master it. But if during that practice, that journey of those 10,000 times, you're just going through the motions of those moves, and you're not trying to improve those moves every time, every one of those 10,000 times you practice that form or that move, you have to be trying to improve it. If you're just going through it and not trying to improve it, no. Then that 10,000 times will help you a little bit, but it won't help you as much as it could have. All right? And this is the difference between striving for excellence and striving for high-level ability and being content to be mediocre. One of the problems I see in modern martial arts right now is too many people are content to be mediocre. All right? And this is a huge problem, and something we want to avoid like the plague. All right? 2003, I became a disciple of Master Chen Zhanghua in Chen-style Taiji Chuan, practical method. So I had to go up to Canada and train with him for several days. Private practice, just me and him. Pretty intense. Then what happened was, last night, we were in his living room, and he said to me, Mike, I'm going to accept you as a disciple. Made me very happy, okay? Was thrilled. But then he said to me, I have one concern. Your Taiji ability has come along very far, very fast, and I'm concerned that you won't work as hard. So I smiled and said to him, you can feel free to be concerned about that, but, I train all the time. I work at my craft all the time. And I told him, I said, look, I won't do as many Yilus as the other guys. But the difference with me will be every time I do a Yilu, I'll try to improve upon it. I'll try to make it better. Every single time. Now, it might be something small. Maybe I realize in one move, oh my God, I'm not doing this move right here. I can't move like that. That's violating a principle. Okay, so that day in that practice, I fixed that move. Wow, okay, good. And the next day, maybe I realize it's something else, okay? And it's the same approach I take with all the martial arts I do, all right? I'm doing Seisan Kata and Isshinryu for 46 years. I still don't have it, all right? I'm still working on improving it. I'm trying to drive and develop my ability even higher. I'm experimenting with out-of-the-box things that no one ever taught me, but that still, I think, might help to elevate my level of ability and keep me moving forward. And again, especially as I get older, I get asked, especially now that I'm 60, I get asked, Sensei, I don't understand how you can still be so fast. Sensei, I don't understand how you're still generating the power. Well, it's because, again, I practice in a way that I maintain those abilities. I just don't go through the practice and not concern myself with getting better. I'm still trying to get better. I still think I can increase my power. I still think I can increase my speed. Now, these might not be reality, but I won't settle for less. I won't say, okay, well, you know what? I'm happy now. I'm good. People think I'm great. They think I'm a fantastic martial artist. All right, I'm good. I can just coast the rest of my life. No. I'm going to go to the grave, not having learned everything I wanted to learn, not having mastered everything I wanted to master, not having improved to the point I want to improve to. Okay? That's the way it is. So I never think I'm good enough. All right? My goal is to be the best at everything I do, which is a very high goal and pretty much impossible to attain, but that's what I try to do. So in my practice, every day I try to improve. I try to improve something. And even if they're small little things, well, those small little things lead to big things. So practice in martial arts, right? Simple things like when we're working with partners, the intent has to be there. So if I'm working with people in karate, I expect that they will actually try to punch me in the face. I expect that they will try to punch me in the body if we're working on techniques against that. If I'm standing there and their punch is magically going to the outside of my head, I will literally just stand and look at them and go, I didn't realize I had put the force field on. So again, it's improper practice. The first dojo I was in, they used to tell us to attack and throw the punches to the side of the head. Again, when you're 15, you go, okay. Now I go, what? No. If you can't deal with the punch in the dojo, what makes you think you're going to deal with the punch outside? So again, the proper practice becomes important. All right? So in karate, again, the grabs, if we're working on self-defense, bear hugs and stuff, yeah, initially, maybe the guy doesn't grab so hard because you're having trouble getting out of technique, so he lightens up a little bit. But eventually, you have to get out of that technique where that guy's grabbing full force. That guy's grabbing your arm, he's choking you, whatever techniques you're working on. Same in weapons defense, okay? The knife's coming at you. It's very nice when the guy just comes out and stabs with the knife and then stands there. But eventually you're going to have to defend where you're working where a guy is moving and trying to really stick you with that knife, all right? The intent has to be in the attack. This is a big problem I see in modern Koru practice. All right, and my Koru friends will probably get upset with this, but frankly, I don't care. All right, it's quite simple. I've been watching Koru for 50 years almost. All right, I've trained in multiple Koru, and what I see is many of the Koru, the far majority of the Koru in modern times, there is no intent in the practice. So I'm watching sword versus sword, and the guy who's attempting to cut is nowhere near the target. And the other guy moves and does the defense anyway. Why? Why are you doing that? All right. I go up to Canada every year to train with Sugino Sensei in Katori Shinto-ryu. One year I was up there. I was working with someone who's pretty much, same rank as me, pretty much. And when I was going to attack and try to cut him, I was kind of putting him back on his heels a little bit. And one of the senior teachers came over and said, the one thing we know about Mike is if Mike's supposed to cut your neck, he's going to cut your neck. Right? So I'm trying to cut the opponent's neck. If I'm supposed to cut their side or their hand, that's what I'm going to cut. I am not concerned with what the next move is. I'm doing my job, which is to cut your hand at that point. And if you can't defend against it, that's not my problem. That's your problem. Figure it out. So Suishitsuru Jiu-Jitsu, which I've been training for a very long time, in my dojo, people try to cut each other with the sword. They grab in the Taitoshu Kata, which is the empty hand forms. The attacks are grabs, different ones. They're trying to attack. They're going for targets. They're not just nonchalant in it, okay? Again, in the beginning, of course, it's choreography. People have to learn the moves. They have to understand the techniques. But then, as we say, you got to turn the heat up. All right? Can you handle that real attack? All right? It should be done where you're going after each other. You're trying to really go after each other. Can you operate and function in that situation? far, far too many of the Koru practice I've seen. I just watched a 3-hour demo of the ones at the Tokyo Budokan. And I was surprised when I saw them practicing with intent. So a group came out, they'd start to go, I'd be like, all right, here we go. Okay, no intent. No one's trying to actually cut each other. There's no spirit of this is dangerous. Okay. When I was trained in Koru, I was trained that it should be practiced in an air of distrust. That your partner who's trying to kill you should be really trying to kill you. Again, not in the beginning. You have to get some ability. But yeah, he has to at some point be coming at you for real, and you have to be able to handle it. This is part of the training regimen. This is part of the proper practice. It's not, oh, let's just go through the forms. Let's just go through the 2-man forms. Okay, good. All right, we did a set. All right, very nice. But there's nothing there. Okay, there's nothing. It's just choreography. So do dancing, because it's not martial art. I see this all the time in Kobudo, Okinawan Kobudo also. The partner practice is no intent. Nobody's going for a target. In the dojo here, when people first start doing the kumiwaza practice, it happens all the time. They come in to attack, and their bow is way out here in front of me. It's way out here, right? And I don't move. And they look at me, and they immediately go, oh. And they go again, and now they attack for the target. They come in to actually reach me. And, I recently saw a demo of 2 Okinawan masters, excuse me, practicing on Okinawa, did Bo versus Sai. Nobody ever attacked anybody. All the action took place in the middle space between them, where there is no one. It's just empty space. Okay? And that's a problem. Okay? You're not practicing real. You're just practicing choreography. You're just taking your sai and you're hitting a bow. There's no where, oh man, if I don't do this block right, I might get hit. And within that practice, when you start doing more serious, obviously you have to be careful. The person who's attacking has to realize, oh my God, this guy screwed up the block. He's got to try to stop it. Okay? So, but if there's no fire in the attack, you're not doing martial arts. If there's not a little danger there, you're not doing martial arts. You're doing choreography. You're doing dance. Many teachers are not detail-oriented. You have to be detail-oriented. Okay? You have to figure things out. If you have to figure some things out on your own, well, then so be it. You figure it out on your own. And I'll tell you, there's some teachers I've gone to and trained seminars with, and several seminars, and by the last seminar, it was rewind, repeat. Rewind, repeat. Rewind, repeat. Nothing new. Nothing new. And the sad thing is all the sycophants in the room, which is usually the person's students, they think the person's phenomenal. Oh my God, this is great. Oh my God, And they'll ask questions to get the response they know that person's going to say. Right? And I'd be standing there and saying to myself, I've heard him say this 50 times. I don't need to hear him say this again. Okay, can we do something where I'm actually learning something? Are there more techniques? Are there more corrections we can make? I mean, what are we doing here? And, that's one of the things I try not to do. The last time I went to New York to teach seminars, which I'll be in New York next week teaching seminars again for 4 days, several of my long-term students came up to me and said, Sensei, we don't know what it was this time, but the way you presented the material was really good. We really liked it. And I was like, great. Means my teachings may be improving. I'm trying to get it better. I'm trying to get everything better. That's all you can do is try to improve. But it's not so easy. If you're going to be a professional martial artist, which is what I am, I'm a professional martial artist. I was a professional warrior also, but now I'm a professional martial artist. I've been a professional martial artist for 40 years, over 40 years, because I've been teaching, right? If you're teaching and you have a school, you're a professional. So you should be a professional. That means you have to work at your craft. If you're not working at your craft, there's a problem. If you think, well, I've got it, retire, pack it in, let someone else take the reins. Because once you think you have it, it's over. Your progression stops. You no longer learn. All right? So I always practice to try to improve. I don't just practice to practice. So this is something you have to get in your head and work at. Too many people just go through the motions, all right? Especially senior people. And when that starts to happen is usually when we see the waistline start to grow, all right? We usually see their skill set starts to break down. You know, I'm good now. I'm an 8th degree. No, that 8th degree, the whole Don thing, okay, if you don't have the ability that rank means, then it's bullshit, okay? So you have to have the ability that the paper says you have. Not that, well, oh, now I'm an 8th on, so now I'm good. No. So, being promoted is great. Obviously, I've been promoted to very high Don grades, and that's wonderful. But being promoted never affects my training. Other than, oh my God, I got promoted? All right, I got to go back and check everything. So I usually go back to square one every time I get promoted. And I go to the first thing I ever learned, and I start seeing if I can improve it. And I go through everything, and I try to get everything better. All right? And this constant trying to improve is what I try to push on my students, especially my younger students. I try to get them to understand that if you're going to be good at anything, you have to constantly work at it. You have to constantly work at it to get better every single time. There's no magic pill. I wish there was. I wish I could touch you and all my ability could magically go into you. That would be fantastic, but that's not the way it is. You have to work. The first time I went to Okinawa to train with Master Shimabuku, he told me the most important word is effort. If you don't put the effort in, no good. So you have to put the effort in, all right? The effort, the training is very important. The practice has to be where we're looking to improve all the time, all the time, from the littlest thing to the biggest thing. Even when I do Zoom classes, I'm constantly checking myself on the video screen to make sure my technique is correct, because this person is watching me and they're going to be trying to duplicate what I'm showing them. So I make sure I'm not leaning, I'm not doing this, I'm off balance or whatever. Okay, I'm always trying to make sure. And if for some reason the camera sometimes shows you a little bit differently, well, then I adjust to make sure I'm showing it so they get it and they understand it and can clearly see what I'm trying to impart to them. All right. So practice makes perfect, all right, is not really true. It's perfect practice makes perfect. And perfection is something we all strive for that we're never going to reach. And as I've gotten older and training longer and longer in these various arts, I say all the time, I've come to realize that the frustration is built into the training. In other words, you should be frustrated when you're not getting something. And that frustration should push you to work at it. Work, 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 work. Improve, improve, improve every time you practice. Okay? If you don't do that, you won't get there. All right? So it's not the actually becoming perfect, because that's impossible. It's the striving for that perfection. The striving for that perfection all the time, right? That journey is what really is important. That's what we should all be doing, striving for that perfection. Because in striving for it, that's what makes us who we are. But if we think we've got it and we're no longer striving for that perfection, we're in trouble. You're not going to improve. You're not going to get better. All right? So important to realize these things. Important to think about it. Check yourself when you're practicing. Make sure you're trying to improve something every single practice. And if you practice X amount of times a year, by the time that year is over, wow, you'll have improved a whole bunch of things. And then you just keep going that. And before you know it, you'll see your skill set improve. If you just keep going through the motions without trying to improve every single time you practice, you're not going to get there. And you're not striving for that perfection. So, think about it. Hope you've enjoyed this one. If you like it, please click that like, subscribe, share button. Appreciate all of you. All right, with a lot of subscribers now, 12,500 over. right? We got over 100 members, and we're moving forward, and everything's good. I'll be in New York next week. Hopefully, I'll see some of you there. We'll be doing some filming while I'm there, so there'll be some stuff for the channel, which will be good. And I'll see you in the next one. Practice. Take care.